Welcome back to Vox in a Box, the podcast that puts the voice in comics. I'm your host, Michael Corley. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are covering classic X-Men number 68 in the 68th episode of Vox in a Box, titled Binary Star. We open with the uncanny X-Men on an alien vessel escaping from the Brood, and they are under attack. Who is attacking them? Why, it is the Brood on their space sharks. If you want to attack somebody in space, the only real way to do it, honestly, is with a space shark. The Brood are closing in. The X-Men are on Lilandra's space yacht, which she is on, along with their friend Carol Danvers. They are on a ship that is not designed for combat. It has some light weapons. That is it. The Brood are closing in, and soon the X-Men will be captured. Lilandra is driving the ship. Kitty is taking care of Kurt, who was injured during their escape, nearly freezing to death, while Colossus, Wolverine, and Carol Danvers go to man what little weapons they have. Carol Danvers, trained as a soldier, has no problem killing the Brood, neither does Wolverine, but Colossus, Peter Rasputin, has his reserves. He does not want to kill. His reflexes are too slow because he's hesitating, because he even doesn't want to end the life of a terrible creature, such as the Brood. Carol has no such reservation. She locks on and destroys one of these space sharks. But they aren't the only ones helping out. Cyclops is in a bubble that is extruded from the side of the yacht that Lilandra has made out of ruby quartz. We know, of course, that that is what his optic visor is made of to block his beams. This is one of my favorite parts about Cyclops. We've dealt with this before, where they'll have a ruby quartz insert thing here, and he can fire through it, and it will make his blast even more powerful. But his visor is made of ruby quartz, and the whole purpose is that it's supposed to block and stop his optic blast. Don't think about it too hard, people. We're just having fun. He fires his optic blast through the ruby quartz blister, and it destroys another space shark. Storm is looking through a viewport. She is trying to use her powers of weather in space. She's not very experienced with it. It's difficult to do, but she's able to generate lightning. But something goes wrong. She's just trying to disable the ship. Something inside her reaches out and she destroys several of the space sharks with a massive burst of electricity, killing all of them. Storm, more than any other X-Men, is opposed to killing, and she is horrified. But for all their effort, one of the space sharks is still closing in on them, firing upon them. Their shields are buckling. Lilandra says that they've been damaged. Someone is going to have to go outside the ship in a spacesuit and repair it. Otherwise, they won't be able to get away. Kurt, Nightcrawler, offers to go, but he is still too weak. He is injured. And Kitty says, no, I am the only one who can do this. I can phase. As long as I'm phased, their blast won't have any effect on me. And Cyclops doesn't want her to go, which, by the way, you can cue that in, any of y'all who have read X-Men Schism. That's an interesting choice. But anyway, Cyclops says, no, it's too dangerous, Kitty. But she has to go. She goes out in those bug-shaped armor. Do you remember the bug-shaped armor from way back when Xavier was having those dreams? Nice callback there, artist. She goes out onto the ship. She's got a little repair thing. She's trying to make the repairs before they are destroyed. Carol Danvers is becoming dizzy inside. She can't seem to understand. She knows something has changed. She knows Wolverine knows something has changed from the Brood's experiments upon her, but she doesn't know what. Outside, the Brood are firing upon Kitty to keep her from repairing, but she is phased. It simply goes right through her. She gets down into the damaged hull and tries to make the repairs. The Brood realize that they haven't gone to warp, and so they must be crippled. They must have made a hit. All of the space sharks are closing in. Cyclops is firing upon them as fast as he can, but he sees that the rest of the blast have begun to slacken off. Where is Storm? He's calling to her, and she is crumpled on the ground. She's saying that not even to save Kitty's life will she take a life. She can't do it. She can't use her powers because she can't control them. Something is wrong with her body. Back to, very briefly, Carol is beginning to sweat. Something is wrong and she doesn't know what. Back to Kitty. She is making the repairs and she's injured. One of the blasts struck her. She had to turn into her normal, unfazed self in order to make the repairs. She didn't see the blast coming. She says that the suit sealed itself and she hasn't lost much air. She doesn't want to admit to any of them that she's almost certainly dying. She's almost made the repairs, but she's not going to be in time. The space sharks are closing in. They're going to cripple it and take them all back to the Brood Queen, when suddenly Carol Danvers' eyes begin to glow. Her skin turns red. Her hair becomes like flame. And energy fires out from Lilandra's space yacht. Energy bolts in every direction, and all of the space shark ships are instantly evaporated. Kitty is able to make the final repairs, and she says, "Throw us into warp!" They go into warp, but they realize they don't know if Kitty's made it back inside yet. They scream, but it's too late. And that is when we cut to supper. We cut back to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, and we see Xavier is making dinner. Who is he making dinner for? All the X-Men are gone. He's making dinner for Illyana Rasputin. That is Colossus's younger sister, who has recently been aged to that of a 13-year-old girl in an instant. But in reality, she spent 7 years in the dimension of Limbo, being raised by the demon Belasco. We see her. She seems very happy. She seems very content, and she has a medallion, that looks a lot like the one that Belasco gave her, with a pentagram inside. Once again, they are talking about wondering if she has any mutant powers. Professor Xavier thinks so, but he actually cannot scan her mind. He thinks to himself he would not do a deep probe because that would violate her privacy. But he can tell that she has sophisticated blocks on her mind, and he doesn't know for sure if she really came out of the dimension of Limbo unscathed. Back to the space yacht, we see it coming out of warp, completely out of power. Kitty is still alive, but dying. She is on the skin of the ship in the small area that was damaged by the fire. She's calling out weakly, "Is anyone there?" And suddenly she sees a figure, a glowing figure. It was Carol Danvers. She now has red skin. She's wearing a costume that has red and white with the symbol of 2 stars. And her body is partially in flame. And she takes Kitty inside. When we get back inside, we see that all of the X-Men are getting cold. They've all put on spacesuits for the inevitable time when the oxygen will run out. The ship is completely dead. Lilandra says the power that they will need to re-energize it would need that of a star. Storm's electricity, Cyclops' blast would be nowhere near enough. But it turns out they have that power because Carol Danvers can now instinctively tap in to a white hole, a continual source of energy. She is able to unleash the power of a star. And that is why she decides to call herself Binary. Using her power, she's able to restart the engines. She finds that no matter how powerful she is, she does have upper limits, and the effort of restarting the ship tires her. But she will be all right. We cut to repair scenes as the X-Men and Binary are getting things back and running again. We cut to Kurt, Nightcrawler, giving Kitty Pryde an examination, and he's saying that she's going to be fine. He teleports to Cyclops to report. And Cyclops says, "Well, why is that a problem?" And he says, "Barely a day ago, she was dying. The shrapnel that tore through her had radioactive elements in her bloodstream. And the strain from the warp, she absorbed enough radiation to kill a score of people. And now she's in perfect health. As much as I'm glad that she's healthy, something is wrong." Wolverine interrupts their conversation, and he's saying, there's no need to ask questions about that, Kurt. All we need to do is find the Brood and kill them. Cyclops is saying that the X-Men don't kill. Wolverine unleashes his claws, snick it, and says, "Wanna bet?" But he lets back and says, look, okay, fine. Everything's great. We escaped. We'll get away. Whatever. And he walks out. They don't know exactly what's going on, but Cyclops sees that there's a pattern emerging. Back to Storm. In the hangar, she is trying to get back in tune with her body. She knew that something terribly wrong happened earlier where her lightning went out of control. She flies up into the air to try and get back in sync with her inner self that lets her be at peace, that lets her control her incredible powers. When suddenly she screams, she grabs her belly, and she falls to the ground. Cyclops comes running towards her. Storm is crying. She says she doesn't know why. She says something is wrong with her body. When suddenly her senses, her incredible senses that allow her to perceive the elements, give her incredible attunement to her own body, she realizes that she is with child. There is a life within her. She probes inside. And suddenly she screams. She yells out, "Goddess!" Her eyes blaze with lightning, and in a blast of electricity and wind, she flies away, pushes Cyclops out of the hangar, gets on one of the small personal craft that's on the yacht, and flies out into deep space. Cyclops cannot stop her. Cyclops is telling the rest of the team that she must be irrational. Wolverine is saying, maybe that's what she wants. And Cyclops has had enough of this. He says, Wolverine, you know something, you have to tell us. And he finally levels with them. All of them. Every last one of them have been infected with the Brood. The Brood Queen has implanted a female egg in each and every one of the X-Men. Sooner or later, more likely sooner, they will all transform into the Brood. Wolverine was the first because his Brood was fighting his healing factor and tried to change. He managed to kill it, both with his adamantium bones not allowing it to transform him and with his healing factor treating it as a parasite. But none of the other X-Men have these abilities. Sooner or later, all of them will die. And Wolverine says that's why he's been so upset. That's why he's only wanted to get vengeance on the Brood, because he knows he can't save his friends. He can at least avenge their death. Wolverine is saying that's why Kitty was cured so easily, because the Brood inside her wanted to stay alive. But if they fight it, it can just as easily get nasty. Carol Danvers, now with the powers of Binary, says, you don't know the meaning of the word nasty. They don't know the word nasty, but by all that I hold holy, they're going to learn. And she is so angry at the news of her impending death from the Brood inside her that she bursts out of the ship, flying out to kill every last Brood. The problem is, she leaves a rather big hole in the side of the ship, and all of the X-Men are being swept to their death in space. And that ends Classic X-Men number 68. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying this space opera that's going on with the Brood. If you do like it, give me an email. Let me know what you think about it. Michael@VoxBoxComics.com. You have a good day, and I will talk to you soon.